Hello, my name is Amanda Meadows, and for this week's reading discussion, I decided to read The Yellow Wallpaper. So, first, I wanted to start off by talking about the fact that I actually read this in high school. I was a junior in high school, so I was 17, and I think it's really interesting how much my understanding and just ability to relate to the story has changed since being 17 and now being 23. Um, I haven't had the opportunity since being in college to kind of reread something and form new opinions and understandings, so that was actually a really cool experience for me. So I was excited, and that's also why I chose it because if I hadn't said that already, I was just interested to see how I could interpret it this time. And we read it my junior year, like I said, and it was when we were discussing transcendentalism. So I think uh, me trying to read The Yellow Wallpaper and also wrap my head around the whole philosophy of transcendentalism and how it's, in order to understand something altogether, you have to understand why it happens or how it happens, or is this reality? Is it happening because of this? And I was very mind boggled as a 17-year-old. So it was just interesting for me to experience this again. So to start off, one of the first things I'm going to talk about is the themes, the two themes that stuck out to me in this story again. So obviously, a theme of appearance versus reality. So I immediately go to thinking of the narrator and what she's going through. I personally cannot relate to the whole seeing a woman in the yellow wallpaper, but, sometimes you kind of get stuck in your head and you're kind of trapped and you wonder, are these things really happening in my life, or am I doing something to make, myself sad, like in her case, or is she just going crazy from being stuck in her bedroom all the time because that's what her husband thought was best for her? So I said, obviously she's seeing the woman in the yellow wallpaper, so that's something like obviously not necessarily happening. Also, like I said, she's just kind of trapped in her own head. So I imagine the more you get stuck in there and the more secluded you are from society and people and interaction, the more it becomes difficult to depict and decipher, what is and is not really happening in your life. Are you sleeping and dreaming about it, or is it actually, occurring right now? And yeah, that's basically the tie I had to that theme. And then my other theme was the oppressive nature of the gender roles. This goes without saying, I believe. Obviously, like I said, I read this in high school, and my understanding of the oppression and gender roles and all that good stuff is widely expanded since coming to college and growing up and being more exposed to the real world. And her husband is obviously the, end all be all character here. Well, what he thinks, anyways. And he's a doctor, so he's obviously very respected. And he's the only one in the family that had a job. He's the only one that worked. He had a very good job. So that's the whole gender role thing. Women could not have jobs. They couldn't be, take on these really important roles of doctors or teachers or, bankers, all these different types of jobs. Women weren't expected to do that. They were expected to have the kids and clean the home and cook the meals and all that fun stuff. And obviously, as you read, you can see that her husband thinks he also knows what is best for her. And that is why he sends her away, because he's also what appears to be a bit egotistical. And maybe that's just my opinion, maybe he truly does want to help her, but I think he also just thinks he knows best and he's not actually giving her the help that she really needs. He's just doing what he thinks because he's somehow made a name for himself as a doctor. And, he also takes away her privilege to write in her journal, which seems to be her only escape, which is kind of funny because it's very harmless. And I mean, it just boggles my mind that she does what he says when he says it, and because that's not how I've been raised to see, and not also what I think this society is anymore. But you never know. um, but so tying back to gender roles and the oppressive nature, he obviously is the dominant gender here, and that's very clear, for the time period of this story. So, my next aspect of the story I'm going to talk about is two characters. Obviously, the narrator, just to describe her like in a little bit more detail than I have been. She appears to be very scared of herself, scared of her mind, scared of her life. Her baby, her maybe a little bit scared of her husband. She also seems very lonely. I mean, he sent her away to a house and told her that's what was going to help her get better. It's very lonely and sad. And, when you're constantly alone, you're not really, I don't think, progressing in any way to help yourself. Alone time is healthy, but too much, I think, can be a bad thing. Especially for someone who is in her mental state, where she's clearly very depressed and uh, afraid and scared and working through a lot more than we understand. So, you know, that's kind of a description of her. Um, she's also a good writer. And then her husband, John, he is the husband, the noble doctor, thinks he knows best for her and what she needs, and he's a well-known doctor. Like I said before, he takes on the typical male role of his time period. Being the breadwinner, kind of guiding his wife into what she should be doing all the time, and he's kind of just mean, in my opinion. I don't think that's a good husband, but I didn't grow up in that time period, so so that's that. And then my final little description of the story I wanted to do was the setting. And so my main setting I pull out is obviously the house, and how it's the house where she's secluded in and kind of supposedly supposed to be healing from her hysteria and getting better, whatever that is for her. And and then the room where she's sitting in the room with the yellow wallpaper. And I think the setting really helps you understand the story because it kind of brings to life a huge part of what the narrator is going through, because she sees that woman come out of the wallpaper. You kind of grasp just how much, how sad she is, how much she is alone, how much she can relate to this woman in the wallpaper. I remember thinking when I was in high school reading this, the narrator can relate to this woman that she sees in the wallpaper because the woman's trying to break out and the narrator is trying to break out of feeling sad and feeling under the eye of her husband, so to speak, and feeling afraid of everything. She wants to be more than that. And so that's what I think the setting does for the story. I guess I didn't say the characters, they just kind of go without saying that, it makes the story, the narrator makes the story because she gives us the dynamics of what it was like to be a woman in her time and, talk about a serious topic of depression and going through that and being scared. And then, her husband, he gives a good insight on the male role of their time. And then, I don't know, the themes, I think they just, themes make a story. So there's that. And then I just kind of wanted to wrap it up with, I think, for me personally, reading this again, it was just awesome to reread it. And I think it's amazing how much my opinions and understanding of the story can change. So I imagine that goes through not just the Yellow Wallpaper, but anything I've ever read, rereading it again, and it's something that's not a movie or a book that I've reread. I'm sure something else I read that year, like I read The Crucible. I'm sure my understanding and concept knowledge and just anything else, I'm sure that would resonate to me in a different way. So I just, I enjoyed doing this. It was fun to reread it. It was fun to kind of break it down into pieces, parts of the very basic stuff we learn about what makes up a story. So, yeah, that's about all I have to say. So, thank you.